This is the Art of Network Engineering podcast. In this podcast, we'll explore tools, technologies, and talented people. We aim to bring you information to expand your skill sets and toolbox and share the stories of fellow network engineers.
Welcome to the Art of Network Engineering podcast. I am one of your hosts, not all of them. My name is Aaron Weiler. I am at Aaron Engineered, everywhere books are sold. Mr. Andrew Lapteff, Permit IP Andy, the greatest name in ACL, named ACL / Twitter handle history. What's up, dude?
Hey, Aaron. I'm super pumped for our guest. I'm crawling out of my skin here.
All right, easy. We haven't gotten to him yet.
I'm sorry.
That leads me to AJ. How are you, sir?
Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. Yes. I'm extremely well, actually. Thank you for asking. I often gloss over that because it's such an arbitrary question that I forget that somebody actually genuinely cares how I am. So you know what, AJ? I'm doing very well. Thank you so much.
Of course I care.
Last and certainly not least, Barry White himself, Daniel Richards, Greater Memphis area, or Greater Nashville area. Sorry, Memphis. Hi.
Howdy.
Howdy. He's at Howdy Packet. So
Yep.
if you can't find him, just retype it. All right.
You probably spelled howdy wrong.
You probably. AJ, do we have any wins from this past week? Or I didn't think I see any.
No, I actually haven't seen any this week.
Okay.
We started the failure plaques channel this week, and people have been dropping their fails, and I'm so proud. Like, so many people are just like, oh yeah, I failed this, I failed that, and everyone's just chiming in on the falls they've taken throughout their journey, and I think it's pretty refreshing to see that this stuff is hard, and people do fail.
I counted them. I have 10. 10 fails so far in my Cisco career.
I think they tell the full story, and I just got a stroke of genius, so bear with me for a second. I have an idea. I think we should grab the most extreme fail and talk about it, because the most extreme W we have thus far is the dude that got a root canal and then took the cert right after it and passed.
NetSecWheezy, man.
I mean, there's nothing more impressive than that. I guess maybe brain surgery and then taking it, right? But
I you know what?
One up him.
In that vein, that is a win for this week. NetSecWheezy started his new job. He moved from Texas to Arizona and started his new job on Monday.
Cool.
So super cool. Congrats to him.
You love to see it. All right. Without further ado, our illustrious guest, I hope I'm not just freaking you out at this point, and you're just going to say, hi. We have with us someone, in a second you're going to hear his voice. I don't really even need to introduce him, but you're going to hear his voice. But we have the one and only Keith Barker with us this evening. Thank you for joining us. Keith, how are you, sir?
I am doing great. I've watched a few of your podcasts or listened, and I'm super tickled to be here. It's like, who wants to listen to me? So I'm grateful to be here. And we talked about what was off limits. I think the listening audience is in for quite a show tonight.
Yeah. So yeah, to tease that a little bit, there's not much that's off limits.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Very little.
It's basically like a first date we got going on here. So yeah, Keith, you're in Vegas, right?
I am. I'm in Las Vegas.
And it's interesting that you say that. I don't know who would want to listen to me, because I think by default, if you're listening to this, you've probably listened to you at one point. It kind of goes without saying. So basically what I'm getting at is the data is showing something different. And
okay.
It seems that everybody's listening to you, whether you like it or not. Dude, you've just been around. And I know for a fact that and I say been around in a good way, I mean just longevity-wise. And I can speak for everybody here when I say, and also everybody our Discord channel, it's like, you've been a part of our journeys at least at some point. So, we all thank you for that. And whether you realize it or not, you're in everybody's living room or office, or you know what I mean? So you're at everybody's computer and workstation or cell phone or iPad or whatever. How do you feel about that? Because there's only there's only so many people that listen to the Art of Network Engineering podcast. Thank you for those who do, and especially for those who have subscribed in the past. But that number is very pale in comparison to yours. And when I think about myself being in somebody else's area, almost like unbeknownst to me, you know what I mean? Like you're 2 a.m, I'm playing and I'm listening to you, like learning something. Like, do you ever think about that?
Do I think about where you're at 2 a.m?
Okay, I'm a bad example.
No,
Anybody else
I
on
get
this
you.
channel?
I feel yeah. So I feel like an underdog. So part of my art of engineering is the fact that when I was really little, like 16, I was really little on my first driver's license. This is the God's honest truth. 5 feet tall, 82 pounds at 16. I got pulled over 7 times growing up by police, not a ticket, because I looked like I was like 11, maybe pushing 12, and why are you driving your parents' car? So that conditioning was built into me, and I've never been able to shake it. So I still feel like the underdog, and so that's part of the success, though, is that I'm willing to work a lot harder than my counterparts at my age, or any age for that matter. So I have a plaque on my wall that says, "Practice like you've never won, and perform like you've never lost." And so, I'm at Cisco Live occasionally. I speak there. I used to speak there occasionally, and I'd be talking in the elevator, and somebody say, "Hey, you sound just like Keith Barker."
Do you get
I've been
offended?
working on it. No, it's very, very nice. I'm very, very grateful for people that come up and say, I just wanted to say hi. I've listened to your content when I was, early in my career or whatever, and you made a difference. I'm like, yes. At the end of the day, we all have like a finite time on the planet. We're all going. And my goal is to make a difference. I know that sounds like, in my moments of delusion, true story, I want to impact 1 billion people's lives.
Yeah.
Then I realize, hey, well, you might get a few million, and that's a few million more than if you did nothing. Yeah. So that's what keeps me going. And every time it's not like football. I never played football, but one of my earliest coaches in training, that's how I got started in this training business, is Ted Hernandez. And they would put me in the pit. It was literally called the pit. Have you heard this story before?
No.
So they put us in the pit. It was with Mastering Computers in like late 80s. They would put us in the pit and say, "Okay, give us your intro." And then, "That sucks, stop. Give us your segue." And they would just drill us to make sure that we could present on target. And one of the coaching things he said was that it's not going to be pleasant, right? You just have in football, you have to get used to being hurt. It's going to hurt. Get past the pain and go for it. Same with learning a new skill like training or any technology. And that's what I've had to address in the last decade with my career. It's like, okay, I know what ARP is. Nobody cares. So they don't. So
I think you're harder on yourself than most people.
Well, but I just have to realize, though, that when new technologies come out like SD-WAN or, Cisco security products or Firepower, that I can't just say, well, I used to know the ASA and stateful filtering and, inspections, because it doesn't. I'm just like everybody else who has to get up in the morning, study, read, lab it up, and get good at something. In my day, these days, I have to get really good at it for like 2 months. Yeah. And then teach it as an expert. Sure. And then go on to something completely different. So I'm grateful that I'm making a difference. I've got a lot of life left in me. I'm 56. I was born in 64.
Holy
People
crap.
are some.
Dude, no. That's not a bad holy crap. And look, because just like when you were 16, you do not look 56, dude.
Yeah. So I couldn't get a date when I was 16, but now at 56, I look like I'm 40 something.
Okay.
Hey, there you go.
Not on the dating scene. My wife and I are happy. So
sure. She won't listen.
Anyway, it's fun. It's fun. I like making a difference. When I train, it's just like chatting with you guys right now. It's like, in fact, that's why people feel like they know me, is because I'm having conversations like 24/7 whenever they turn it on. So I'm not sure what the original question was, but somewhere in there,
no, that was cool. That was cool. So that actually made me think, like, okay, so all this new stuff that comes out. I mean, I think that's one of the challenges with us is that, and maybe just this industry, I say us, but there's just always something, And I think Nick Russo the other day on Twitter even brought this up, and he's like, 3 CCIEs later, and here I am still learning about something. You just asked like just a really random question about something that seemed like, somewhat simple. So I gotta ask, what's the most difficult thing that you've ever had to learn? Because you make everything look super easy, and so I want to know what challenged you. Because if somebody's like listening and they're like, oh well, if Keith found that hard, I don't feel so bad now.
Okay, that's a great question. So I'm gonna break out my honesty section of my brain.
Here we go.
That's what we want.
Because sometimes if we have something that's really challenging and then we master it, it becomes one of our favorite topics, right? So
How that works. Yeah.
I think you're gonna love this because of your experience with service providers. Probably the toughest thing for me to learn at the time was MPLS Layer 3 VPNs. Because there's so many freaking moving parts, right? There's the VPN label and the transit label and
address families and
Yep, and VRFs and the exports and the imports and the carrying in BGP as BGP VPN v4 routes.
Yeah.
Yep. So I remember when I first realized I didn't know what that was. And then I started studying it. And I don't know if you've noticed, but there's not a lot of great training everywhere. At least there wasn't 15 years ago for MPLS Layer 3 VPNs. And I had to sort that out. So I started off with the basics and then labbing it up. And that probably took me a good 2 to 3 weeks just to get my head around. And then when I got my head around it, I was like, oh. And then I taught it at Cisco Live for a few years. I did a course for I&E on it. That was like 11 years ago. And that reminds myself of a tough topic that took several weeks to get my brain around.
That's it's funny, man. Has anybody else here, besides myself, have you guys ever tried to either configure or even just like wrap your head around like how that works at all?
No.
I've done a little bit of MPLS, but not MPLS.
Look, the command is simple. It's MPLS IP. Like it's that. That's just it, right? And then you put it on the interface. However, the dependencies are like out of control, right? So like on the surface, it's really cool, and it just makes sense. Everything that we've like learned in the past, this is what's always so cool to me. Everything that we've learned in the past is like it was alleviating a problem, right? Like, okay, complex router lookups, or SD-WAN. It's like we pay for all this bandwidth, we're not using it. Just as an example, it's so cool to see how that stuff like just weasels its way into our everyday life. Yet, like most of us have never encountered, an MPLS config or, seen what that looks like, or even like a layer 2, like tunneling protocol or something like a layer 2 VPN over a service provider network, just all that stuff. Like you're right. There's no training, because I can vouch for that. And what training there is out there is very difficult to understand, because there's a big difference between someone that can teach and someone that can understand something. And if that disconnect exists, then you lost me immediately.
And I was just looking up on YouTube. I'm going to paraphrase the number. I did a video back in like 2010 on MPLS Layer 3 VPNs. Has like 300,000 views.
Wow.
And it's terrible. It's technically accurate, but it's like, what is this guy doing here? I don't know if you've seen the before and after Keith pictures, like for me 10 years ago or 5 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Embarrassing. Oh my gosh.
So
I was like 30 pounds heavier.
Yes.
I
what
had
happened,
man
dude?
boobs. I had a wake up call
Okay.
in 2007, and I just thought, you know what? I got to change some things. So I changed several things. I changed my body by exercising and eating better. I also, I don't know, nothing's off limits except for those two things we talked about, right?
That's it, man.
Yeah, go for it.
I had an honest, hard look at my life. I had a marriage of 30 years. And the problem was we had 25 wonderful years of marriage. But the problem is it was a 30-year marriage. So we'll do the math there.
I'm guessing it was the last 5, not the first 5.
Yeah. Okay. So that was a life-changing event. So I've got really fond memories and a good relationship with my ex. But I remarried in 2017, and so May the 4th. How do I not forget this anniversary? Yeah, May the 4th be with you. So I married this beautiful woman. She's a singer at Cirque du Soleil, or she was for 10 years. Yeah, I know.
Nice.
If you've seen Mystère, in the last 14 years, she was there. And then she sung at O a few times, and she was at O right before the pandemic. But so as far as what changed, I had a wake-up call. and I had to take stock in myself and say, I'll tell you, here's the thing that broke it for me. I had somebody that I admired who sat with me, and we had a beverage, and he said, my daughter is 17. I was going to wait a few years for her to get older, and then we'll clear a break. And he said, yeah, just wait till you're 70 or 80. It'll be fine. And
that day you went home, you're like,
I said, yeah. So how does that apply to networking? Let's bring it back. When I was at Paramount Pictures in 94.
Wait, hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to get you to tell your story here in a second. So, but tell the story now. But somebody here remind me to get back to that, because I completely glossed over that for some stupid reason. But anyway, go ahead.
So I had a team that I worked with there as a manager of the network stuff at Paramount Pictures in 94-ish, 95. And I remember 10 years later, one of the technicians reaching out to me saying, oh, what do I need to do to get CCNA certified? And I thought to myself, what have you been doing for 10 years? You got to do something now. That's the key. That's the divorce story now tied to networking. Do something now.
Yeah.
Nobody's born knowing anything about networking and the protocol stacks and how they work. And if you just set a goal, my thing is don't make a big fanfare. Don't I'm going to do this. Commit to people so you're accountable, but then just shut up. I know it sounds harsh. Shut up and do it.
Just do it.
Spend an hour every day or whatever you commit to and just study, measure it out, write it. So people ask me, Keith, how did you get a couple CCIEs? I said, one day at a time. I had 4 or 5 kids, I'll have to count based on the year. I had 4 or 5 kids when I got my first CCIE.
Wow.
I studied for 8 months, 3 or 4 days a week, about 4 hours per day, just on the CCIE. And I passed the first time because I studied my butt off. And
you did the work.
Anybody can do it. It's just a matter of, cutting out something lame. Everybody has something lame in their life, usually.
Yep.
Figure out what that is, cut it out, and then put it to use, and then just keep on marching. That sounds hard and harsh.
No.
But
I'm the tough love guy here, so you're gonna get nothing but high fives from me when you start talking like that.
It sounds familiar. Aaron yells at me, and it's very helpful.
I was just gonna say the person that's got his ears perked up the most right now is Andy, because he's the one that needs to hear this the most. Because the thing I like about Andy is that he plans everything, but the thing I hate about Andy is that he plans everything because he gets in his own way. And I yelled at him earlier in this week. This is why this is so relevant. I yelled at him earlier in this week because I kind of went off. I tend to do this. I go on these tangents where I'm like, oh gosh, just do it right now. Kind of like how you just said. It's like, come on, man, you're not doing anything else. Yeah, just delete an app off your phone. One app off your phone. I don't even care what it is. Just delete it off and replace it with something educational or productive that you could use. A perfect example. On-key flashcards, right? We all know how spaced repetition and interleaving help you learn. They solidify knowledge. So I was like, Andy, put an Anki deck together as you're going through OCGs. In fact, don't even think of anything. Just copy the Ditka questions into the note cards, but make them very difficult. Make the cards very difficult so that you can't just go, yep, I know what that is. That's easy. Boom, boom, boom. Make it hard so you have to explain it and all this other stuff, right? So this is all me just ranting, on Tuesday. So the following day, Andy, bless his heart, he's like, so got a question. Because he's trying to implement, right? He's like,
I started my flashcards, and then I started
my flashcards. I got the app. That's already good enough for me. I'm like, you can call it quits for today because that was a lot. I mean, if you think about it, if you did something, I'm cool with that. If you want to go beyond that, that's you. But as long as you change one little thing, you're good to go. And so he's like, hey, question. Should I put these in different decks if they're different subjects, or how should I put this up? And I said, Andy, shut up and just build the cards. Stop getting in your own way. I was like, just build the freaking note card,
Yeah.
And he was mad.
I took it well.
At first he was mad, and then he came back. This is the best part. He came back hours later and he said, I needed to hear that. Thanks for doing that. No context. Just I was a little mad earlier, but thanks, dude. I appreciate it. But I could not agree more. All you have to do is one little thing. 4 hours a day. Some people don't have that, but to your point, you could find it somewhere. You had 5 kids, maybe 4 kids, let's say. But I could tell you that most people have 1, 2, right? Maybe at most 3. So if that's your excuse, you just heard it here. You can have 5 and get away with it.
I have to ask. I have to ask my question. I ask everybody because you had 4 kids. So when did you study? I mean, what?
I have a total of
hours?
7. So I have 7 kids. Just full disclosure.
Dear Lord.
Okay.
Whoa.
Okay.
7 kids. My oldest was born in 87. The youngest is now 17. So do the math on that. So your question is, when did I study?
Like, would you wait until they all went to bed and just study all night, kind of thing?
It was usually 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So I had a fairly normal job. Come back, have dinner with the family, some family time, and then start at 7:30 ish for 3 to 4 hours.
Right.
And then back then I didn't have social media to distract and so forth. So it was important though. I was raised fairly poorly. Not poorly. My parents were great, but they were modest income earners, like single income family.
Yep.
My dad was a teacher. And I just, here I am with the responsibility of being a parent. Like parents are outnumbered, right? You have 3 kids. There's only 2 parents. It's over. So I was desperate. And that was a motivator for me to stick with it. And then I do have one shout out. 2 weeks before my first exam in 2001, I was done studying. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. Have you?
Actually,
Done studying?
I'm gonna let Andy answer that. Have you ever just been done studying, Andy? You've been just over it?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. Well, that happened to me. And so I was done. I was like, I can't study one more week. The exam's in 2 weeks. I'm done. And my friend Ed Inez, who is CCIE 6784, I'm CCIE 6783. This is back in 2001. He said, Keith, you got to study this. I said, I read it. He goes, no, you got to lab it up. Is PLAR, private line, automatic ring down. You pick up one phone with FXS Sports and the other one rings, like the bat phone. And so I labbed it up, got it working. It took about 3 or 4 hours. You know what? That saved my bacon on the day of. Back then it was 2-day labs. It saved my bacon. So anyway, it's worth it. It's worth it to do the studies, do the labs, and just keep on going. And if you want to hear about the failures, which I imagine is coming up in this interview,
absolutely is.
I've got plenty of those too.
Okay, cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's start then. So you were, let's say you just graduated high school. Give us the plan here. Did you go to college? Were you gonna go to college? Start us there.
Okay. It was a cold day in 1982.
In Siberia?
In Camarillo, California.
Oh, Camarillo.
Yeah. So out of high school, I'm going to skip a couple of years.
Okay.
But
Were you 100 pounds by this time?
I grew. I'm 6 feet tall now. I weigh about 165.
But hold on. What's your secret? Like, how did you do that?
Don't tell that to AJ, because he's gonna say, okay, first of all, how dare you wear a medium shirt? You must look stupid. This is what he told me. He told me this. I'm
This is true.
I'm 6'2".
This is true.
I'm 6'2", 185, and he was like, you wear a medium shirt? How is that even possible? So there you go, dude. Some of us.
Hey,
there you go.
Anyway, so you're 100 pounds by now. You're a couple years after high school, so you learned how to eat. Booze, probably.
Yep, so I didn't drink as a young person. I didn't drink till I was 40. But anyway, I made up for it after then. So, So I went into sales. I wanted to make money. All my brothers and sisters went to college. They're all college graduates. I'm the only one who has one semester of junior college, and I stopped. I didn't like school. So I sold cars, I sold insurance, and then I realized now that if we think education is expensive, I'm borrowing this quote, you got to see what the price is for not having an education. Ooh. It's a hard school out there if you don't have some kind of training. So I did insurance, I did sales. I sucked at all that stuff. I couldn't sell. I wasn't making money. I was married. And so I was a cashier at this it was like a Home Depot, but one that doesn't exist anymore. It was back in 1986 or 80.
What was it called?
84. Grossman's in Ventura County, California.
I know what Grossman's is. I'm
really?
a California guy. No,
is it still around or is it gone? So I was at Grossman's, and they had these commercials for Control Data Institute, like, you can be a technician. Welcome to the world of electronics. And
wow, sweet.
Woo! And then there's this guy who came in to repair the registers, which were electronic, and he had this like silver briefcase.
Oh, here we go. Was it handcuffed to his wrist?
No, but he had a car that didn't have rust and stuff on it. It was nice.
Oh,
I
nice.
I don't know what that guy does, but I bet I could do it. So I went down to the Control Data Institute to their office. I got a loan for it was somewhere between $4,000 and $6,000. I forget what it was, but that was 1984.
That's a lot of money.
A lot of money. I had to get a loan. Went to school. It was a 1-year school, and they just introduced the microcomputer platform. Before it was like tapes and mini computers and mainframes and stuff.
Right.
So I was breadboarding with resistors. I can tell you about Eli the Iceman, and I can read the resistor codes, which we don't use anymore. And then it was a 1-year course. Then 8 months in, they said, "Hey, Keith, EDS is interviewing. We want you to go interview." And I said, "Oh, I'm not ready to interview. I haven't graduated from, Control Data Institute yet." And they said, "You don't get it. The only reason you're here is to get enough skills and bootstrap your butt to get a job. And then you're going to start learning what's really going on."
Yeah.
So I took the interview. Anita Martinez was the interviewed me. And I feel like an old person. "Let me tell you about people you don't know."
Yeah, well, no, I think it's the most impressive thing that this was 1984, you said?
This is 84. So she interviewed me.
And you remember her name.
Yeah, she was amazing. And so she said they had a lot of people they were interviewing. And I said, "What is it that I can do right now before my next interview that would help me prepare so that I could hit the ground running should you decide to hire me?"
Ooh,
nice.
And I learned that from somebody who was wiser than I and told me. So she gave me this book, this huge manual on something brand new called an HP LaserJet printer. And it's just state of the art back then. So I took it and I started reading, and fuser rollers and the corona wires and the voltages involved and so forth, and how it melts it. And then when I came back for the second interview, she tested me on, "What do you know about HP LaserJets?" And I told her, and she hired me right there.
Wow.
Because she goes, this kid will actually do more than what he's asked to do. He wants to find out. And so that got me my entry-level job, starting working with PCs, and then Blue Cross of California, and then I can go into my history there if you want. But
yes,
that's how I started.
Yeah, please do. Because so you got the job. She gave you the job for the whole.
Yep.
Like, was it printers the only thing you were doing, or did they just kind of use it like a Swiss Army knife?
So it was electronic data systems. We had support contracts for GM, and so Hughes Aircraft, General Motors plants, all that stuff. And so part of that, I was exposed to something called networking. Again, this was brand new for local area networks. It was Ethernet with 10-base-2 coax cable, and Novell was on the new kid on the block for networking. And so Dave Nelson, oh my gosh, this is like 25 years ago. Dave Nelson was the network engineer, and I just kind of made friends with him, and he taught me about it. I learned it, and I got good at it, and I started my career in networking with Novell back in 1980. I guess it was 87 at that point. And then I just kept on moving up, went to Paramount Pictures after that, and then beyond.
So you were, this whole time you were in the Los Angeles metro area?
Yep.
Okay.
So EDS first, and then Blue Cross, and then Paramount Pictures.
Gotcha. So Paramount, that's a cool. What do you do at Paramount Pictures? I mean, obviously it's networking, but I mean, like this is this is the worst pun I'm ever gonna make in my life, guys. So just mute if you need to.
I don't know. You've made some pretty bad ones already. So.
Yeah.
Tell us about behind the scenes at Paramount Pictures, please.
Okay. Well, I was okay. You want me to answer that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the coolest thing about working at Paramount Pictures is that if you're friends with the security officer, you can go on any clothes set you want.
Whoa.
All right.
Okay.
What's the coolest one you went to?
Star Trek.
Star Trek. Nice.
Wait,
Yeah, I was there when they were filming the transition between Picard and Janeway. Deep Space, not Deep Space Nine. That's what's after?
It was
What's
Deep
after?
Space Nine?
What's after?
Next Generation, then Deep Space Nine, right?
Yeah, but there's a bigger one with with Picard. What's that one?
Picard's Next Generation. Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Okay, so when they were filming that Generations movie from the transition from Star Trek to Generations, and at the same time, Deep Space Nine was also in production there as a series. But that's the coolest thing, is to be able to go behind the scenes. You have to turn off your back in the day, the pager. Have to go. It was a cool pager with text and everything.
Heck
So, but I was in charge of a network team there that did all the rollouts of new equipment, repairs, maintenance, that kind of stuff.
That's pretty sweet.
Great job.
That's
Yep.
pretty sweet.
It was
I
only
So
an
how
hour
long
and a
were you
half
there for?
commute. It's only an hour and a half commute each way from Simi Valley. Yep.
Did
I
you
was
say
there-
only?
Yeah. It was terrible.
It's a Los Angeles joke.
So I was there in 94, and I think I left in about 97. So maybe 96, a year and a half, 2 years at Paramount Pictures.
Okay.
That's
Yep.
a sweet job. I like hearing stuff like that because there's so many cool industries out there, and what's really neat about being like a network engineer or a network admin is that you can work in any vertical or any industry, and that included like you could work for a movie company or a TV production company.
Yep.
And so sky's the limit. So I love that.
Yep.
Because you want to be a networking, that's completely different.
That was my first exposure to some of the cool tech too, like tape robot for backups.
What the heck
You
is
know,
that?
so-
Oh yeah.
What the
I don't
heck
know
is
what
that?
I don't know what that is.
It's like a big
Oh.
it's like a big machine, and it has like in the middle of it, it's got this little arm that goes down, and it'll go grab a tape, and then it takes it back over to the mainframe so that it can
Whoa.
read it.
So
That's so funny.
Aaron, you really have never seen a tape robot before?
No.
Oh my gosh, they go like 35, 40 miles an hour. So these arms,
Yeah.
and they're just whipping around. Yeah, a
I'm
lot of
Googling
fun.
that. I'm good.
It's fun. So that was my first exposure to pretty significant data center on-prem, where you go down, log in, go through the service desk area, key card again to the tapes in the back, and they had money too. Paramount had tons of money. So my office was on the 5th floor of the Zucker building, 55 Melrose, looking over the B lot, and the B lot is like a 7-foot parking lot that when they need to film a water scene, they remove all the cars, they repaint it, and they
flood
fill it in. So Congo was filmed in there. The Waterworld scene. Waterworld ran out of money, so Paramount forked over some cash. They filmed a huge scene at the end when the jet skis are all jumping off the boat. That's all filmed right outside my office.
That's
The Net with Sandra Bullock was filmed right outside my office, and they'd have notices. Okay, after 6 p.m., all offices lights have to be off because they didn't want any reflection off the office buildings.
Yeah.
Well, so the movie was The Net. So what they really didn't want was someone who actually knew what they were doing to be looking over into what they were doing. Because I don't know if you guys remember this, but that movie had a lot of this going on, and you were supposed to think that they were actually doing something, and this is the noise you heard. And then like the green screen, like she was hacking.
Yeah.
She was hacking.
So they're doing a trace near the end, and one of the octets of the IPv4 address was higher than 255. Where's the quality control in Hollywood?
Well, I'll tell you where they were. They made
They
you
could
go home.
consult with their own networking team on that
No,
one.
somebody then explained to me that they didn't want to have to pay somebody rights or buy something out if they used a publicly addressable IP,
Uh-huh.
and they were avoiding that.
Was it 10.555.555?
No,
Yeah.
it wasn't RFC 1918. It was a first octet that was valid.
I see what you did there with the phone numbers.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I see
Oh,
what you
I'm
did.
so sorry.
555.
I was with you there,
555.
Dan.
Yeah.
I missed it.
Yeah.
I
Maybe that
appreciate
was-
the wit.
That was more of like an ISIS net ID.
It depends on what the meaning of is.
Is
Ooh.
brother.
All right. I can't do a Clinton impression.
Is. So all right. So you Paramount Pictures.
Yep.
Somehow at some point you migrated from Southern California to Vegas.
I did.
Yes. When was that?
I think that was like 2009.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
quite some years later then.
Yep. And it was just to buy a house. I couldn't afford. I had several kids, and I couldn't afford a house in Southern California.
Dude.
I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
So bought a house in Vegas primarily for that, and then I also changed my career at that time. I got a training job here in Las Vegas. That was my first full-time training gig.
Sweet. Who was that with?
That was
What can you say?
is a little teeny company called the Learning Center. And just a little teeny, I would say it's a mom and pop shop, but it's really more like a little ma shop. Just really teeny. And it was great. I taught Novell and Microsoft and, oh, wait. Yeah. I thought I got my time. So I was at Paramount and I left there to go to Vegas. Sorry, I thought I got that backwards, but yeah.
Oh, right on. So you were Paramount
Yeah.
for a long time then.
I was at Paramount for so when you have a span of 30 years to cover, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. So
Yeah, you know-
at some point I left Paramount and I went to work for KnowledgeNet, mastering computers, which then led to I worked for INE for a while. I worked for another IE training company for a while, and then I started with CBT in 2012.
Yeah, that's weird because I actually, maybe I'm alone here. I did not know that you worked for INE, so that's interesting to hear.
Yeah, some of my videos still on YouTube. They still have the INE. Like, I try to trim out the beginning of those because I don't know if they'd like those or not. But I had a good time. The Bryans, this was before they were bought out by a venture capital company. But Brian Dennis and Brian McGann. It was interesting when I worked there with Scott Morris, Anthony Sequeira. I never met Brian McGann in almost 2 years of working there.
Why?
I think they were taking a little sabbatical. They'd been worked so hard for so long. They hired some more trainers, and I spoke with him once, but I never met. The first time I'm meeting Brian McGann was after I wasn't working there for a couple of years at Cisco Live. So,
okay,
but he's a great guy, great trainer, super smart, and Brian Dennis I dealt quite a bit with. But yeah, INE I think is a great company.
Yeah. No, I do too. And like we were talking about service provider stuff earlier, that's one of the places you can go to get stuff for service providers, actually. So that's pretty cool. Certainly not a book. You're left to your own devices there. So yeah, you get to Vegas. You're, basically moving to Vegas and starting training at the same time.
Yeah.
It sounds like, you were kind of like already a trainer type of person, right? Before that, like, what made you want to go into training? I mean, other than changing people's lives.
So many years ago, in fact, when I was at Paramount Pictures, I went to these workshops on how to manage teams and improve and so forth. And these are names I haven't thought about for at least 15, 20 years. There's a trainer named Darby Checketts.
Well, I don't know how you'd forget that name.
Yeah. So Darby,
Yeah, really.
and I thought he was just owning this audience, meaning he was making a difference. He was getting his points across. I was just moved, and I thought, wow. And it was at that moment at Paramount Pictures when I decided, you know what, I want to make a career out of training. I think I could do that. And so when I changed my job from Paramount going to Vegas and starting training full time, my salary was cut by 50%. So, but that was okay because it was a strategic move and I wanted to do it. And then
That's
I
awesome.
was able to get back up. But a 50% cut, people were like, what?
Yeah, 50% cut. But the crux of that situation, though, is not necessarily the 50%. It's how late in your career you did take the 50% cut, right? Because I think if you were going to suggest, because I did the same thing, except that my 50% cut was going from $18 an hour to $9 an hour. So it was like, I got some years to catch up, basically. But it's the long view, as we'll call it. These are binoculars, by the way, because I can't put them on with my glasses. The long view. Is that creepy?
For the listening audience, Aaron looks amazing doing that.
Yes. Well, we'll put this on YouTube.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not. It's always risky. It's less risky younger in your career, which is what I'm always trying to preach. It's like, hey, if you got to do it and you got to pivot now. Kind of like what you were saying earlier. Just do it, right?
Yep.
Keep your eyes on the prize. Just pivot if you have to. So you took a 50% cut. Eventually, you're finding someone to pay you, whether it was INE or CBT or whoever, right? But it doesn't matter because 50% cut for like wanting to go to work every day and showing up and like having a good time actually, like,
yeah.
We toss these words around very fluidly around here, and terms such as total compensation, that's part of it. Your time, your health, your like mental health, things you can't quantify with a dollar amount. So that's huge. It sounds like you've reset, like you've done a hard reset just a couple of times.
This is Key 3.0, no doubt. I don't categorize those, but it definitely is version 3. Yeah, there may be a version 4 too. Who knows?
Did you quit? Did you quit your engineering job when you went into teaching?
No. So what I did was I did a lot of consulting on the side. So I'm just going to blend all the years together here. So I had a top secret clearance for a while from a company I was working with, and so I did some really amazing things with that, including consulting after the fact. Cause the top secret clearance was good for like 5 years. I thought I'm going to leverage this. So.
Heck yeah.
I want to tell everybody, though, it's a need to know basis with the top secret clearance. And I guess apparently I don't need to know anything. So I worked on firewalls and systems, but I can't tell you, they said we need these rule sets and we need to verify them. And you go in these facilities that are, now secure facilities. They wouldn't even let me bring my car fob in. I had to leave it with nothing electronic. So they would let me bring in like a CD, so I'd have all these scripts written. I'd put it on CD, burn it, bring it in, and then they could destroy it once it's there. And they would run it on a separate computer, which wouldn't, affect or be able to compromise their other systems. But anyway, so I did some consulting lightly. I say lightly, like maybe 4 or 5 times a year, just to kind of keep my fingers in it because I love it. And then for the last 8 years at CBT, well, maybe the last 5 years, I really haven't done any significant consulting anymore because I don't have time. I lab it all up. So if it's web security appliance or email security appliance or something that's near and dear to everybody's hearts, SD-WAN, I'll just lab it up. So I've got behind me a rack of gear. It's all virtual, ESX and vSphere that I can lab almost anything up on. And it's amazing. I wish I had these tools back 20 yeers ago.
Oh, hold on a second, because you might get steam coming out of Andy's ears here. So,
Okay.
so you don't. I just want to be clear about that. You
Yeah.
don't to this day. Like, I'm not saying you never have, but right now you don't have a physical lab.
Well, so is this going to be on YouTube or is this going to be visual or just audio or both?
Both. But I can commentary if you're going to show us something.
Well, right outside that door,
Yeah.
I've got a stack about 6 feet tall of physical gear.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, that's fair. That's fair.
So if I want to spend the 40 or 50 watts a piece on that and the heat and the noise,
heat, that's a big one.
it's a party. I can turn them all on. So I do have the physical gear, but it's just so much easier with that. I'm sorry, where's the rack? Here, I'll give you a view.
There it is.
There it is.
I turned them off for this interview, but I've got 4 ESI XI hosts. They have like 128 gigs of RAM each, running vSphere, and I can just do a whole SD-WAN deployment, hundreds of routers, anything I need to with the current images that are available, and it's so much better than having to have the physical gear every time. So sometimes, like I've got a 3750 at top of rack there because you can't. Sometimes you need the hardware.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And like if you want to plug in an access point that's powered with power over Ethernet, you need to have something delivering that power.
True.
So I've got that for demos and practice that need it, but that's true. I haven't probably turned on anything except for that 3750 in many, many months.
So is the 3750? Is it shared by your virtual environment?
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
That's what I figured.
No one would know. It's like which one's the physical, which one's it's all blended, but from the interface.
It all is, brother. I love this the part where you had to leave your key fob, because like, don't take this the wrong way. But you're not James Bond, but they treat everybody the same way. They're like, I don't think so, buddy, as if like we work for the Kremlin. I just love that though. Like the physical security sometimes just always kills me. Like they had a guy. There's a guy in the Colo in St. Louis. They always had an armed guard out front. He had like an AR-15, and I'm like, who the hell is he gonna shoot? Like, first of all, he's by himself. Like. Mm-hmm. As if the guy, like the bad actor that's coming into the Colo is like, all right, I'm going to announce myself outside first. Oh, where's the guard at? Hey, listen, buddy, I'm breaking into this building. What are you going to do to stop me? And he's like, oh, it's funny. You should say that. He just owns you. Yeah. But no,
I think a lot of it is, defense in depth includes physical deterrence. And that would definitely be one. Like when I was at Pearl Harbor, I did a class there for a group, and I had to leave. I couldn't bring my phone even because anything that has a camera, in that case, couldn't bring it in. So, it's important to have apparent, fences, visibility, all the physical aspects. Yeah. Well, deterrence of many kinds, just so that people will make sure that you're a hard target to get to.
Yeah. There's so many data centers out there too. It's like you couldn't possibly defend all of those. That's a scary thought too, because like I always think about that. There was always one in particular. It was a Digital Realty building that I used to drive by all the time. Actually, I used to like ride by because I was on public transit at the time, and I would just see it. It was a little 4-story building, and I always felt like back in the day that they would hide the building, like at least not put anything on it. But man, nowadays they're like, digital reality, check us out. We're right here. Here's our phone number and our website. You know, like here's what we do in case you didn't know. So if you wanted to attack us, that's what it is. And it's just in a really rough area of Oakland. Like it's in the weirdest place. Just not a place you would think. Like it's in a very industrial area that's like just cut off from the world, which I guess that makes sense. But it's very visible nonetheless. So
we have Switch Communications here, which has a huge acres and acres.
Yeah.
But it's great because we don't have a lot of earthquakes here. We don't have a lot of tornadoes here. We don't have a lot of water here. It's a joke for Nevada. But it's pretty safe, and they don't make any bones about advertising who they are.
Right.
As you drive by on Warm Springs, it's like boom.
Right. No, you can see it from space.
Yeah.
The guys at the space shuttle are like, what in the hell is that in Las Vegas? Like, that's going to be the world's biggest hotel. No, sir. That is the SuperNap. Yeah, that thing's freaking huge, man. I love seeing that when I fly in. I was actually there like 2 months ago, oddly enough, but during the pandemic. So that was an interesting thing. But I'm like pointing to my wife out the window when we're flying. I'm like, check it out, check it out. She's like, what the hell is that? Dumb. Dork. She's like, dude, there's like Cirque du Soleil, like your wife. Cirque du Soleil, there's all this cool stuff. Look at that Ferris wheel over there. I'm like, check out SuperNap. It's so big.
All right.
Dude.
I got a question.
Here we go. Wait, hold on. How long has it been?
It's
Well,
47
He's right
minutes
on
in.
the money. He's right on the money. Go for
I had to wait for you to tire out.
it.
So
I did.
So I want to circle back to your first teaching gig, Keith. So were you a natural teacher from the beginning? Is it a skill you had to develop?
I was scared spitless, so I don't think it was natural. Now, when I was raised in an organization where they encouraged a lot of public speaking as part of their faith-based organization. So I had some experience with teaching, but I was nervous. So I have a confession that I've never told anybody. You all want to hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I was applying for this job at this mall shop called the Learning Center in Las Vegas, which was really, really small, I never had a full-time teaching gig before. And so she asked me if I could send her some evals from classes I had taught, because I gave the impression that I taught. I don't know. So I got my my team together. I was managing a IT team, about 7 or 8 people. And I said, hey, I want you to sit down for a minute. I'm going to teach you about something. And if you wouldn't mind, would you fill out these evals for me?
No.
I'm their manager. This is not a fair situation. So it was short. I don't remember the topic. They filled it out for me. I scanned those, or maybe I faxed them. It was way back. So I scanned them or faxed them over to her and got the job. But I was scared. Oh my gosh. I got to tell you. When I had the first class I taught was Novell. And I'd been working with Novell. Back in those days, it was like version 4.x with directory services. And I remember being scared spitless.
How many people were in the classroom?
Less than five or six, maybe. Very small.
Okay.
But I was scared.
That's a palatable amount, though, I feel like, to get started with, like 6 people.
Scary.
Scary.
So
Man.
to answer your question, I was scared to death when I first started teaching. And then it became more natural.
Is that a form of fake it till you make it, or like what was?
Well, I'd quit my job, right? And so I was there. I had the family to support. It was really make it or make it was really the scenario.
I got you.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, there's something I read something a while ago, actually a couple of different times with different context behind it, but it's that if you have a plan B, you're less likely to carry through with plan A. Right? Like if you have a backup,
I got you.
or in your scenario, like make it or make it, that's my only option. That's a better motivator than, well, but if I don't, right? But if I don't, having a fallback plan, it's like, no, don't think like that, because the future, thank goodness, none of us have any idea what's going to happen. So if you're going to choose how you're going to think about the future, you can therefore choose to think about it positively, right? No one says you have to be pessimistic. And also don't disguise that under that guise of, you know what, I'm just being a realist. Like, no, that's not what that is. You're being pessimistic. Like you could choose. No one knows. Choose to be optimistic. Anyway, end rant. And Andy, sorry. Go ahead.
No,
I
well,
wasn't actually. I clearly wasn't tired, so there you go.
Well, you're talking about commitment, right? I mean, Keith had to make
Yeah.
this work. He had a family, he left his job, he was pivoting, and
Yep.
you're 110% in when that's how you're going to put food on the table. Did your teaching skills kind of just develop with time and experience? Did you have to did somebody have to help you? I mean, I know you said your dad was a teacher. Like, is it just in your blood?
Yep. I don't know about being in the blood, but so I now have my timeline straight. We moved to Vegas in 2005. That was the teaching opportunity there. And I was pretty much on my own as far as improving my skills, just through experience. Like, hey, that really sucks. Don't do that again. That kind of thing. But when I went to, it was Mastering Computers, which is what training job I had right after the Learning Center, where we traveled. We did not stadiums, but 400 to 500 people at a time, stadium teaching. My coach was Ted Hernandez, and that's the time when they put us in the pit and just grilled us. And that's when I learned how to teach.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's when I learned how to hook people. Do you know how to keep a really smart person waiting or anticipating or engaged? Do you know how to do that?
Nope.
I don't.
No.
I'll tell you guys later. So, but
We're all like,
techniques
huh?
like that.
Help us, sir. We got our bowls out. We're like, feed us.
Like segues to and here's my secret training. So when we onboard new trainers at CBT Nuggets, I have the opportunity to work with them very closely for the first few weeks, and a part of that, I just take everything that trainer brings to the table. We don't hire, by the way, anybody who's not great to start with. So we bring their greatness, and I just kind of give them some feedback on how to maintain that greatness and the enthusiasm and the anticipation. And one of the secrets of training is never teach somebody something unless there's a reason. So if I'm going to talk about Active Directory, here's how I'm not going to start it. In Microsoft, there's something called Active Directory. It's
Right.
active. It's a directory. Sorry, I hit the mic. Instead, we'd say, in a large organization, one of the challenges is keeping track of all our users and central management. We need some kind of tool to help, manage and get that all together. The solution is, and then we finish up with a punchline, then we go in. So it's really, here's my secret to the world, the Keith Barker secret sauce.
Oh, God.
It's always problem solution. That's it. Always. Like if you hear me say something in a class or training, it always is started with, let's imagine it's Tuesday morning and we just showed up and our boss says, you know what? I need blah. There's the problem. And then I go into the topic and I just reverse engineer it. And I spend maybe 15 to 30 seconds because nobody likes a 4-minute. I mean, if they're listening to this podcast, maybe they like a 4-minute something, but nobody wants a 4-minute lead up to a 2-minute training session. And that's my secret of, so in answer to your question, thank you for the question. It was Ted Hernandez in the pit, just beating the crap out of me and helping me to realize how important it is to be an influencer of any type. As a trainer, you need their attention and you need to give them a reason for listening. So right after the break, here's what we're going to cover. What is it?
What? Tell us.
That's the kind of stuff we'd use.
Huh.
Okay.
That's genius. Hold on. So there's one thing I want to touch on before I forget too. I'm doing a real good job of remembering stuff today, so this is weird. All right, give us the failures, man.
All right, which one? Give me a topic and I'll give you a failure.
All right, let's start with, we know you passed the CCIE on the first try. Let's just start with Microsoft.
Well, can we go back to CCIE? Can I
Sure,
cut there? Because I have 2 CCIEs.
Right.
You hear about the first one, but nobody hears about the second one. So it was 2003-ish, and I was going for my second CCIE. It was security. And I was like, oh, yeah, I passed the 2-day. The 2-day is brutal. It's so
bet.
brutal.
I
Have you all
bet.
heard about that before?
Yeah, like here and there.
Okay.
Tell us.
It's just brutal. You go in for the first day, and then you have to stay the night in or wherever you're testing. And then the next morning when you come in, if you go to your desk, and if there's a book there, that means you get to continue.
You get to keep going. God, it's like
Yeah,
the
if there's no book, you're basically wait for the proctor to come over and say, I'm so sorry. So Kathy Sacintas was my proctor. I went in the second day, it was 2001. I sat down, and there's no book. I'm like, so sad. And then somebody came up to me on my left, leaned over and said, hey, buddy, you're in my spot. I was like,
Oh, dang.
I'm in the wrong seat. So I got up, found my right seat, had a book there. I was like, I got this.
Yeah.
And then
Oh my gosh.
So then you have to configure something for that morning based on the tasks. Then they let you have lunch again. And then as you come back in for the second day, half of the second day, it's troubleshooting. They've injected problems in your lab. Yep. And so I came in and they started picking people off. And it was Ed Yanez, myself, and one other person out of 12 who started, who were finally allowed to continue. And it was tough. Also, in my rack, that was back in the day when they had a physical rack right there next to you, and you had to cable it through patch panels. And so they had put problems in on the previous day, like moving stuff around on the back end, and they hadn't corrected it for my rack. Whoa. So on the first day at noon, I was talking to Ed at lunch. How you doing, Ed? Because you can't talk about details. He goes, yeah, I just finished BGP. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm so much in trouble because nothing was working. So I went back in after lunch and I told the proctor, hey, I have no connectivity on this fast Ethernet port. I need a trunk on it. And she said, oh, just go ahead and use Ethernet 0 instead of fast Ethernet 0. I sat down and thought, see, back in the day, you could not trunk on a Ethernet port. It had to be fast Ethernet or better.
Ethernet,
back in those days. And so I knew she was just brushing me off, like, go away. I only have to see you for 4 more hours and you're gone. And she's a sweetheart, though, nice lady. So she said, you can go back there and check, but I'm not giving you any more time. So I went back. There was 3 cables that they're wrong.
Punch out wrong.
Well, they were, cross-connected wrong. So I fixed those. Then I was just flying for the rest of that first day. So
you fixed a problem that wasn't even supposed to be there. They should just give you like a third CCIE just because. Because this is like it was rigged against you on accident.
Well, there's a moral to the story. The moral is if I had sat there and because I had the thoughts like this isn't fair, right?
Yeah.
But I thought that's not going to get me my CCIE. I just need to attack this with everything I can. So that was successful. Now let's go to the CCIE security. I scheduled it. I went, I studied with the ASAs, VPNs, all the stuff, IPsec. Back in the days, it was not ICE, it was ACS, the ACS server. Anyway, ICE used to be called ACS with TACAX and Radius, and I was ready. I took the lab, and I failed it. And what killed me was BGP, because I thought, oh, it's security. I'm focusing on security. And half of it back then was still BGP with prefix list and, making it work correctly, and I hadn't prepared. So I failed the CCIE for security twice before the third time when I finally passed it. I was done. I'd given up, and I said to the proctor at Cisco Live, I'm not going to do that again. That's painful.
Did you do the lab at Cisco Live?
No. But I saw the proctor at Cisco Live, and I
got it.
And I was like, get out the world's tiniest violin for Keith freaking Barker.
Right, because you passed it the route
third
switch,
time.
but the route switch you got the first time, which probably you were like, all right, it wasn't that
I
bad.
thought I had it. So he said, this very kind proctor told me, listen, if you take it again, I will personally grade it for you.
Wow.
And I thought, because I was still playing the violin, right? Since then I realized, you know what? Life is not fair for anybody. Nobody. So I took it again. Here's the key. I studied again really hard. And I took it third time. And before I got back to the airport in San Jose, I was online and I got an email that said, your results are in. I checked it and he had done what he said he was going to do. He probably hit a button by manual, verified it, and got my second CCIE. So the trophy, it's right there. It's it's right there. Oh, it's not in camera. Sorry.
Yeah, can't see it.
I keep it on my shelf.
We see the other one though.
So how long in those 3 tries? How much time went by between those?
You have to wait. You have to wait at least a month. And so, as I recall, there's at least 2 to 3 months between each try.
Okay.
Why did you go for a second?
Punishment.
Yeah, glutton for punishment. Why would you want a second one?
That's a great question.
You still can't answer that.
It was just all eyes forward.
Yeah.
Do it.
How many kids did you have at this time?
See, Hannah, I think it was 6 at that time.
Wow, man.
My youngest is 2000. She's 17, so I think she's born in 2003. So I got it in 2000. So I guess it would be 7 with a newborn. Yeah, because it was in 2013. Yeah.
Wow.
See, Keith is blowing my cover because I've been complaining about my 2 kids at home with COVID and why I don't have my MP yet. But you're just getting IEs with 6 kids.
You're piddly 2 kids over there.
Me, man.
It's a team play though. My wife the mother of my children. She was fantastic. She recognized my commitment. She was willing to support. I had a team.
Okay.
And
good,
Ed, you know, for the first one with Ed Yanez, he was also right there alongside me. And you know, the first gear I bought was like 4,000. I bought 4,000 series routers, not the current 4,000s.
Yeah, not
The
ASR
4,000s from 2000. Yeah,
ISR 4K.
Yeah.
and they were. I think I bought 3 of them. I think they're like $5,000 for the 3 routers.
Wow.
And then I got them, and they didn't have any Ethernet ports. I didn't know that. I
thought you were going to say they didn't have an iOS image on it. They're like, oh, you got to pay for that.
No, they had iOS, but they didn't have any Ethernet ports, so I had to buy Ethernet ports and then figure out how to connect to them. And I had a really cool rack. Back those, it was token ring switching also, in addition to Ethernet.
God.
And ATM and data link switching. We didn't have X25 that I recall, but we had something I know that you want to hear.
What?
Frame relay.
Oh my God! Stop.
Yeah.
We actually nicknamed it Lame Relay around here.
Yeah. You know, back at Paramount Pictures when I started there, frame relay was the shizzle.
They had that.
Yep. Oh, it was state of the art because we had lease lines. I mean, it really was amazing.
It
We had
was,
lease
it was.
lines and you had frame relay, and then that OSPF point to multi-point. Nobody appreciates that now.
No.
But back in the day, that has so many benefits for a frame relay point to multi-point, including the routing that works there. It is fantastic. Yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
nobody cares. Yeah.
Well, I
know.
remember the because right around that time, this was interesting because cable modems had just come out, and the fastest tier at that time was like 99ish. It was about 768K. So it was DOCSIS 1.1, 768 by I want to say 128 up, and that was the big deal. The 128 up was the big deal. Because otherwise you had to have a partial T1, and that was gonna cost you thousands, but that was 800K symmetrical, right? So the gaming center I used to go to, because I was a professional gamer for a little bit of time there, a couple of years that I wasted, and I was really good. So I was sponsored by a gaming center, and the back of that gaming center we had a partial T1, and the only reason I would go there is because we had a partial T1. So guess what? I went on Newegg and bought the biggest hard drive I possibly could, and I downloaded the whole internet. that's what you do. Like I was on IRC.
Back when you could download the whole internet.
Yeah, I was on IRC chat rooms, you know, in the bots, just requesting stuff through these bots, and I was on ICQ news groups. I was in all of that stuff, man. If it was on the internet, I had it, and I was selling it to somebody. Like
Nice.
if you peered into my hard drive at 2001, you found some really weird stuff. Like I'm talking like movies that you would think that an adult male should not have, right? Like and not like that. I mean like stuff
the Notebook, stuff like
yeah,
that.
like the Notebook or Coyote Ugly. I remember I had Coyote Ugly. Like what was I doing with Coyote Ugly? Stupid.
So we can neither confirm nor deny any of these statements by Aaron.
What's up, everybody? It's Aaron Engineered, and you know how it goes around these parts. Sometimes these episodes get a little carried away, and we end up doing a 2-part episode, but that's okay because it's Keith Barker. I'm sure you're fine with that. Tune in next week to catch part 2 of Keith's episode, where we're interviewing him about more cool stuff, his personal life, and he even gives us a little bit of a challenge at the end. So tune in next week. See ya.
Hey everyone, this is AJ. If you like what you heard today, then make sure you subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcatcher. Smash that bell icon to get notified of all of our future episodes. Also, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We are at artofneteng. That's Art of NETENG. You can also find us on the web at artofnetworkengineering.com, where we post all of our show notes. You can read blog articles from the co-hosts and guests, and also a lot more news and info from the networking world. Thanks for listening.